In this video tutorial, we're going to take a look at how we can create a scanner using an EV3 brick along with an EV3 color sensor. And essentially, I created a color chart with various bars of colors using precise measurements on an RGB scale in Photoshop. Primaries, secondaries, and tertiary colors. And as I pass the EV3 sensor over the color, each of the color bars, you'll notice that the live feedback virtual instrument in the front panel is giving me various readings. And those readings actually match up pretty closely to the readings that I used in Photoshop to actually generate the colors. So down here I have a loop in which I've created an automated panel, if you will, where it's reading for red, and if it finds red that's greater than the threshold of 150, it activates the motor. If it finds red less than 100, it turns off the motor. Now, how did I get those numbers as thresholds? I did that by creating a live feedback virtual instrument in my block diagram that would feedback to my front panel over here and give me live readings. So how did we do that? Let's take a look and start from scratch. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to File, New, and ask for a new virtual instrument window. And I'm going to get my block diagram window and its corresponding front panel window where all the virtual instruments appear together. I'm going to spread their space out evenly by tiling them up and down. And you'll recall that any programming that we do down here in the block diagram, the front panel is the equivalent of where dials and buttons would show. So if you were building a TV, all the wiring would be down here, and up here in the front panel you'd have your screen, your channel changer, and so on and so forth. So within the block diagram, we now want to create a live feedback virtual instrument. I'm going to start by grabbing a sensor and dropping that down here. Let me switch to my hand tool and let's set it to read EV3 color RGB, red, green, blue. Okay, so next I'm going to set the port to which this sensor is plugged into. For that, we right click on the top center of this block and the pop-up menu gives us some options. We'll go down to create and we will choose constant, and it is set to port 1. That's exactly where I have it plugged into, so we'll keep it there. And then finally on the lower right over here, I'm going to right click, go to create, but this time I'm going to choose indicator and watch the front panel at the top. It creates an RGB panel that will give us live feedback of variables indicating how much red or green or blue that the light sensor is detecting. We're going to put this within a loop. So I'm going to back up here, go to my programming structures and grab a loop. And finally, we need to indicate when this loop will stop. So I'm going to right click on this little stop sign and choose create a control. And now a little stop button appears up here. Let me grab this, select it, and move it over here so it is beside the RGB panel. Now if I hit play, you'll notice now that I'm getting readings. I'm swerving my EV light sensor over the bars, and when I go to red, we can see red is at 255. And by the way, you'll notice if I pass over black, the variables all go down to approximately 0. I've got an idea of the type of threshold approximately. I'm kind of eyeballing it, but I'm going to choose 150 as a threshold for when there is a lot of red, and below 100 for when there's an absence of red. So I can proceed to program my automated loop now. So to start, I'm going to step back again, go to my inputs and outputs, and this time I'm going to choose a wait for command. Okay, first I've got to turn the program off if I want to continue programming, and this time I'm going to choose a wait for command, drop that in there, get my hand tool, click on the pull down menu and choose EV3 color when it is when red is greater than what? I'm going to add a numeric constant here. On the lower left of this block, I'm going to right click, choose create constant, not control. Control, if I chose control, I would be able to enter the value up here. And I said greater than 150. I mean, I could make it work like that, but in this case, that's not how I want to proceed. I want to create a constant and just add the numbers down here. And I said 150. Now, you would use the control if you were doing a live performance system, if you will. If you were running a system and you were doing it live and you wanted to adjust parameters on the fly and you had your computer open, then you'd be manually controlling the robot. But in this case, my intention is to have the robot operate autonomously, which is why I'm setting a constant in there for it to rely upon. And next, what happens when it sees red above 150? I'm going to turn a motor on just so it's indicative that the robot actually saw something. And so if you see red above 150, what I want you to do, so next I'm going to indicate which port the motor is connected to, create constant, and from the pull down menu I'll select port A, and then I'm going to add a wait for once again. And once again, I'm going to choose EV3 color, but in this case, if red is less than, and I will set the constant to 100. Move that down here. And then what do I want it to do? If it does read something less than 100, if there is less than a level of 100 red, I want it to stop. I'll click on the top center to indicate that I am referring to port A, the motor that's on port A. I want it to break. Now I'm going to wire all of this up. So the top right corner to the top left, and so on. And I need to loop this because I want it to run continuously. So I'm going to back up in my functions palette, go back to the programming structures, click on loop, and put this within a loop. And then finally I got to indicate when do I want this to terminate. I could set this to a stop button. I can also set it so that if I turn the off button on the EV3 brick itself, that would turn it off. Okay, so let me go back a couple of levels and go to my input outputs, down here to complete. I'm going to go to sensors. In this case, I'm going to ask it to read the brick. I'm going to connect that to the little stop here. And on the lower right here, I'm going to right click and choose create constant, and the constant will be the enter button on the brick will stop the program. And there you have it. Now if I run the program, you'll notice up here I am getting my readings when I get to red at 255, so it's above 150. The program's activated. I move the sensor off of red and the variables change.